Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. This is a place where I talk about the books that I've been reading, and I have read 10 in the past week. I'm going to tell you about 9. I'm saving one of these for a special theme video that I'm planning for this month. So these 9 are quite eclectic. 6 of them are in translation. 4 of them I read for Pride Month. 4 are in comics format. 4 are in audio format. And 3 of them are nonfiction. And only one of them is in paper format. The others were ebooks. And most of them are for adult audiences, but I also read 1 or 2 for teens, and there's one that's a children's book. So yeah, all kinds. Before I get to telling you about those, I'll quickly update you about rowing. I am back to rowing on Tuesday. I went to the rowing club and they were taking the Crazy 8 boat out. That is a sweep row with 8 people in it. Sweep rowing is a little different from sculling, where you've got 2 oars. With sweep, you've just got 1 and you're paired with a person who's got the other one. And Zoe was the cox, and it was just great, and we had so much fun on the water. Loved it. And my foot, the plantar fasciitis, was fine, absolutely fine. One of the things about that boat is you keep your shoes on, so that I think really helped that I had the full support on my foot as I was rowing. So more 8s for me in the future, I hope. So tomorrow, June 14th, is World Knit in Public Day. So all of you knitters out there, go and knit in public. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to knit in public, but I do plan to. I did start a new knitting project, and I am going to save that for the end. So for those of you who are knitters or who are interested in knitting, hang in there till the end of this video. I'll talk about my new knitting project. When I was in Edmonton a couple of weeks ago, we stayed with my friend Marcia, who is Jewish, and we were there for a Friday night supper. So it was very special to be there for her Shabbat. And that ties into the very first book that I want to tell you about, Songs for the Brokenhearted by Ayelet Tsabari. I listened to the audiobook read by the author and 2 other readers. Ayelet is an award-winning Israeli-Canadian writer with Yemeni ancestry. I have previously read a collection of her short stories, The Best Place on Earth. I'll include a link to my review of that book. That's on my book blog. That doesn't get very much new stuff, but there's some oldies and goodies on there. She's also written a memoir. This is her first novel. It is about family stories, family secrets. It's set with 2 timelines in Israel. And it's about a Yemeni family that escaped persecution, came to Israel in 1950 when it was a new state. And we meet Saida, who's a young mother, and Yakub, who's not her husband, and the 2 of them are attracted to each other. And the second timeline is in 1995. Saida has died, and her youngest daughter, Zohara, has been studying in New York City, and she's in her 30s. She comes home to Israel, reconnects with some friends, and learns a lot of stuff about her parents that she did not previously know. Her father had previously died. And then there's Yoni's storyline, and he is Zohara's nephew, who was very, very much attached to his grandmother, Saida. One of the things that I learned about history in this book is something that's been called the Yemenite Children's Affair, or the Yemenite Babies Affair. I will link some information in the show notes if you want to find out more, but basically hundreds and possibly thousands of mostly Yemenite babies were disappeared, given up for adoption without the parents' consent. When Saida and her husband and other people arrived at these immigrant camps, refugee camps, their infants were taken away from them and told that they would thrive better in a nursery because they were living in these tents and they didn't have proper hygiene there. And then from one day to the next, a healthy baby then they were suddenly told, your baby has died. There was no body, nothing. Apparently the thinking was that these Yemeni families had too many children and didn't know how to look after them properly. This kidnapping and trafficking of stolen children is a global issue. There's just so many stories of it happening around the world. Horrible, horrible situation. At university, Zohara met a young woman whose family had escaped the Holocaust and settled in the Philippines. And that was another thing that was new to me. I did not realize there was a Jewish community in the Philippines. What is and isn't recorded in history is one of the things that comes up in this novel. So there's the Yemenite Babies Affair, but also the Nakba. Zohara and her friends are asking each other, when did you learn about the Nakba? And, they're saying, never. One of them was saying, our elementary school was right next to these ruins that we would climb over and play in, and nobody told us that this was the ruins of an Arabic village. And then there's more contemporary history in this novel as well, because it's taking place, the second timeline is taking place in 1995, when Yitzhak Rabin was the leader, the prime minister, and there was the peace process going on. There were people protesting this, and Yoni is involved in that. My favorite aspect of the book was the women's songs from Yemeni tradition. So Zohara's mother was a singer and belonged to a singing group. And there's a whole bunch about songs in there. Ofra Haza, who was a singer that I used to listen to back in the 90s. And I used to be in a gay and lesbian choir. I was also in a small women's singing group. And so I know how the neurochemicals that are released in your brain when you sing and the special joy of singing together, it's better than therapy. Anyway, I enjoyed the novel very much. The next audiobook is by a queer Trinidadian Canadian, Suzanne Palumbo. It's a lesbian science fiction space adventure. It's very short. It's only 4 hours long. I forgot to say the title. It's Countess. The central character, Virika, has emigrated from the ex-Terran Antilles, and she's faced prejudice because of her skin color and her origins. Colonization has trapped her people in poverty, but she manages to gain the rank of captain in the Empire's space merchant marine, and then she is betrayed. So she is seeking revenge on the interplanetary empire that has subjugated her people for centuries. It's described as a reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo, and it zips along, pretty fun. Another one that I read for pure fun is this manga. The guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. And it is by Sumiko Arai. It's translated from Japanese by Ajani Oloye. So this was originally published short bit by short bit on the artist's Twitter account. There's lime green spot color throughout, which is pretty distinctive for manga. And it's a high school romance story. Aya is described in English as a flashy girl. Gyaru, I think, is the Japanese word. She likes to wear a lot of makeup and clothes that make her really stand out. And she doesn't quite fit in, though, with the other flashy girls at school because of her taste in music. She really likes American alternative rock. And there's this clerk at the record store who has the same taste in music as she does, and she assumes that this person who's dressing all in black and looks really cool is a guy, not realizing that it's actually her classmate Mitsuki who sits right next to her. It's that kind of romance, and it's sweet, it's fun. I've got another Japanese book to tell you about. This one does not fall into the sweet category. Hunchback by Saou Ichikawa. I listened to the audiobook, and I also read the ebook. This one is very, very short. It's only about 90 pages long, so less than 2 hours. And it is powerful. It was on, I think, the long list for the International Booker Prize. And it was also the first book written by a Japanese writer with a disability to win the Akutagawa Prize. Saou Ichikawa lives with congenital myopathy. She uses a ventilator and an electric wheelchair, and so does her character in this novel. It's basically a character study of a woman who is severely disabled and wants to experience a sexual awakening. Ashaka has myotubular myopathy, and she attends online university classes and writes pornography to amuse herself, and she makes money at it too, which she donates because she is independently wealthy from her parents. There were some surprises for me in this short story. I highly recommend the audio. So there are additional sounds like keyboard tapping, and when the character is using text-to-voice apps, we hear this sort of robotic kind of voice instead of the narrator's regular voice. So yeah, a very appealing audiobook. be aware that it's not for family listening, because some of the erotica that she's writing is what's shared in the book. Okay, on to another book in translation and also on the International Booker list. I think this one made the short list. What I'd Rather Not Think About by Jente Posthuma, translated from Dutch by Sarah Timmer Harvey. This was also shortlisted for the European Union Prize for Literature. This one is in the voice of a woman whose twin brother has died by suicide. She's having a really hard time living without him. She is struggling. She's socially awkward, can't make small talk. She collects sweaters. She likes to pet them. The story is told in these really brief chapters where she's looking back on their childhood and teenage years and their early 20s and just keeps thinking about her brother. It's got a whimsical sense of humor. It is also full of grief and this question of how do we go on when someone we love so much has died. It's, very much at the core of this novel, and I found it quite affecting. And this next book is a memoir, and it is also about suicide. I listened to the audiobook, Things in Nature Merely Grow, and it's by Yiyun Li. She's an award-winning Chinese-born American writer who chooses to write in English. She has written many books. This is the first one of hers that I have read. She says, "There's no good way to state these facts which must be acknowledged. My husband and I had 2 children and lost them both. Vincent in 2017 at 16, James in 2024 at 19. Both chose suicide and both died close to home." Oh, I transcribed so many quotes from this book. Yiyun Li is writing with such dignity and grace and preciseness of language as she thinks about her sons and what it means to continue to live when your children have chosen to die. She talks about some of the helpful things that people have said and done shortly after these 2 deaths, and also meaningless things and hurtful things. So I was taking note. It's always good to learn because, this is a situation that is, hard to talk about, what to say with people who've had that experience. I've had the experience and I still don't know what to say to other people. She talks about her own suicide attempt. She talks about her mother's mental illness. I like this line, "A gardener learns to stop being a perfectionist." I 100% agree with that. She also says, "There's no real salvation from one's own life. Books, however, offer an approximation of it." And for Pride Month, I want to talk about this aspect of her son, Vincent. When he was in 7th grade, Vincent decided one morning to go to school in one of his mother's dresses. In his usual flamboyant manner, he chose a pink one. He said, "What's the point of going to school in a dress if it's not a pink one?" And Yiyun explained to him that she was worried wearing a pink dress would get him bullied by his classmates. And Vincent laughed that off. And he said if there were idiots who dared to tease him, that was all the more reason for wearing pink. Just so I can be in their face. Yiyun was full of admiration for her son and also very concerned for him. And she, writes about how parents want to raise their children to be bold and free, but also be able to protect them, and knowing that the world outside is not a kind place. This is a beautiful memoir. I absolutely loved it. I'm going to switch gears entirely now and talk about a graphic novel about trees. Nonfiction, actually. So this is an adaptation of a German bestseller, which became an international bestseller in many languages, The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. The graphic novel adaptation was by Frédéric Bernard, and then it was illustrated by Benjamin Flao, and that was done in French, and it was translated to English by David Warriner. This book is suitable for all ages, and it's basically about a social life of trees and all kinds of things about trees, fascinating facts, including their importance to our climate and to the well-being of humans. Peter Wohlleben is pictured as the narrator through this graphic novel. He's accompanied by his dog, Maxie. He talks about his life as a forester, kind of the ups and downs of that, and then his work in his later years as a conservationist. In addition to all of the informational aspects of this book, insects, birds, the fungal relationships with trees, all of that. There's some philosophical aspects as well. Wohlleben quotes Antoine Lavoisier, who is one of the forefathers of modern science, who said, "Nothing is created, nothing is lost, everything changes." So I have been going through a long list of the Eisner nominations for 2025, and this book received 2. It was in the Best Adaptation from Another Medium category, and also for Benjamin Flao, Best Painter/Multimedia Artist. And it's beautiful. The next book is in the Eisner nomination for Best Publication for Early Readers category, and it's Club Microbe by Elise Gravel. It was translated from French by Montana Kane. Elise Gravel is a Quebec writer and illustrator of, I think, more than 30 children's books. She says she finds microbes beautiful and fun to draw. So this is an introduction to readers in grades 1 to 3 to a actually really broad category of living organisms: bacteria, viruses, fungi, protists, and algae. It's whimsical and it's informative. And the last book, my favorite of all of these that I've been telling you about today, also received 2 Eisner nominations, one for Best U.S. Edition of International Material, and also in the Best Coloring category. It's All Princesses Die Before Dawn by Quentin Zuttion. It was translated from French by M.B. Valente. Quentin is a queer French cartoonist. This book won the 2023 Jeunesse Prize, the one that is judged by a jury of young people. And you would think from the cover, where you see a couple of 8-year-olds, that it would be for young children, but it's not. It is suitable for ages 12 and up. Very much of interest to adults, I think. It's a slice of life story set over the course of 24 hours in the life in one family. And there are 3 different romantic relationships, 3 romantic disappointments as well. So we start out with 8-year-old Lulu, who's trying out his mother's lipstick. And his friend Yo-Yo comes over for the day to play and stay overnight. And Lulu likes fairy tale type stories, and he imagines that he's a princess and gets Yo-Yo to rescue him, to kiss him, to revive him, that sort of story. Whereas Yo-Yo wants to play with guns, as he's starting to, get beyond what he calls the baby stories and playing with dolls. And then there's Lulu's 15-year-old sister, Cam, and she has a secret boyfriend who's a few years older than she is, and she sneaks him in through the bedroom window. So that's going on. And their father, who has been coming home irregularly. Their mother confronts him about his responsibilities to her and to the family. And so there's the adult relationship as well in this story. And the news on the radio is of the death of Princess Diana in Paris. Such a beautiful, wonderful graphic novel. I highly, highly recommend. And that is all I've got for you today. So stick around. I am going to talk about knitting, but for those of you who aren't going to, let me know what you've been reading in the comments down below, and happy reading until the next time. And for those of you who do want to know about knitting, I have been enjoying this book, One Skein Wonders, in lace, and I decided to try doing these fingerless gloves because I have all this yarn that I got at an auction, and it's in small quantities. So I did a whole bunch of swatches. I'll pop in an image here. I did more than these. Some of them I didn't even cast off. I just wound them again. I knew that they weren't going to be suitable. And it is one that is knitted in the round, these gloves. But when I was doing it on double-pointed needles, as the directions tell you, and 4 double-pointed needles, there are wraps on the ends, and it was just so hard to get a nice, neat join between the needles. And I decided to try using 2 circular needles, and still the place where there's the join between the 2 circulars, and having to slide it through interfered with where the wraps were, and it was making the holes in the lace really uneven. So I decided to knit it in one piece, and then I'm going to seam it. I'm just going to join it and seam it, leave an opening for the thumb, and then once I've finished the glove, I will pick up stitches and knit the thumb. We'll see how that goes. If you have experience with doing lace on double-pointed needles or two circulars, the thing is, I would have done it with magic loop. I think that would have been my favorite way of doing it, but the needle part is actually too long, and so I couldn't stretch the stitches enough to pull out the cord for the magic loop, so that didn't work. And I'm going to find a place to knit in public. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Happy knitting, happy reading. Bye-bye.